Welcome to Home and Garden DIY, where you'll get the information you need to get started on the projects that you want to work on. I'm Kara, and the plant that I have for you today is called Sundrops. It's a beautiful southwestern native that blooms in a mound about 1.5 feet across by about 1 foot tall and is just covered with sunny lemon yellow blooms. This is a plant that is fairly low maintenance, but it does need to be pruned, as most plants do. Because of its low stature, it's a good plant for places like devil strips. It's also very drought tolerant, so a devil strip is a great place to plant this plant. You can also put it at the fronts of flower beds since it's low, and it does well alongside your driveway or in a small bed near the front door. As long as you've got plenty of sun, it is a sun-loving plant. So in the video today, I'm going to be showing you a Sundrops that has gotten leggy. And what I mean by that is that it's gotten so overgrown that it is bare, largely just bare branches in the center of the plant, and all of the foliage is at the ends, and it's not looking right. It should be completely covered with foliage and covered, of course, with those lovely yellow blooms that we want. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how to prune back a plant that has become leggy so that you can get it to be covered with foliage again, get those blooms that you want, and then you'll know how to keep this plant beautiful and blooming and pruned so that you have that foliage and those blooms all the time. Since this particular Sundrops is one that I'm working with at the end of the season, I'm not going to be able to show you in this video what it looks like when it's at the end of that process and completely covered in foliage again and blooming and beautiful. But I do have pictures of some that are taken from this same garden, and I'll show you those in just a minute. But be sure and stay tuned, because I do have a bonus for you as well. Here I am with a Sundrops, and I'm going to show you how to prune this back. But what we're going to do is we're just going to reach in here. We're going to cut off several inches here at the edges of the plant. Just bringing that down. We're going to even out the side of the plant. Just cut it back so that we're forcing it to put its energy into putting foliage at the center of the plant and on the other side of the plant where it doesn't have very much foliage right now. So for now, I'm just going to stop there. I've evened it up just a little bit. And we've evened it up on the sides, and now I'll take the camera off the tripod and show you this other side of it so you can see what we're working toward. So this is the same edge that I was just showing you. You can see what I just cut off. And all I did, where this is still not quite round on this side, you can see I just evened it up over here and just cut it back in by a few inches. But here's the problem with the plant. This is the side that we want to have growing out. I'll change position with the camera just a little bit and show you. This is actually the center of the plant right here. So we've got all of this foliage growing out on this side. We don't have anything growing over here. And that's because this plant is leaning out toward the light and because it needs to be pruned back. Continuing on around the side here, we're just going to keep removing just a few inches at a time. This is a plant that it is very easy to remove too much foliage from, and you must remember when you're doing your pruning on your plants that you have to leave enough foliage on the plant so that it still has the ability to photosynthesize energy, particularly if you're doing it when I'm doing it right in the middle of the summer. It is August 12th here in Texas. It is crazy hot already. It's only about 8 o'clock in the morning, and you just cannot cut off too much foliage on your plants, or you're much more likely to lose them. And you certainly don't want to have that happen. So we've shaped this up just a little bit on this side, and I don't want to cut too much off on this pruning because of what I just said. This plant, as you can see, it's considerably defoliated on that other side, but we do have some nice growth coming up here from the center, several places where there's some nice growth coming up here. So it has potential to do well, but it needed a little bit of pruning, and it's going to need some good watering while it's still hot. But that's all we're going to do to this plant today, and in just a moment I'll take the camera off the tripod and show you how that shaped up the shrub and made it look a little tidier, a little bit neater, and it's going to encourage it to put on foliage where it's all bare. Show one last little place here around this side. I'm going to cut a few inches off here, and then I'll show you what that looks like when I finish. You can see where it is in relation to the rest of the plant. And I'm just going to shape that up just a little bit before I back off and show you the whole plant. So I didn't cut off much there. I've left on the ground what I actually removed from this side so that you can see it was just a very small amount. But when I pan out here, you can see now that the shrub, at least on the side where it is got foliage at the moment, that is all evened out, and it's got a nice round shape now, and we've removed some foliage so that it's going to be forced more to grow up here in the center. I'm going to show you some of this growth. We've got nice growth here, got several nice places that it's growing there. Here's another nice bit. And then right here, we've got a lot of fresh new growth coming on the plant. So those are all very good things, and we want to encourage that, but the way you encourage it is by not allowing the plant to continue to grow out where it is misshaping the plant by growing off to the side instead of out from the center. So that's what we're doing here, is we're pruning. And I see over on this side, there is actually some that could be removed right here. Again, it's going to be a very small amount, like on that other side. So I'm going to cut that off, show you how much I removed and how it shaped up the plant, and I'll have that for you in just a moment. So as with that other side, I didn't remove very much. You can see there next to my pruners on the ground, I didn't remove very much at all. But again, as I pan around, you can see how much it evened out the shrub on that side. And now we've got a nice round plant. So that's what we're aiming for. It doesn't take a long time, and you don't necessarily want to remove a lot, especially if you are pruning in a hot climate in the middle of the summer. But what we're going to be doing, as I've said, is going to force the plant to put out new branches and new foliage in this area here in the center of the shot where there isn't any foliage. But the other thing we're going to do is we're going to get blooms here right in the middle of the summer. So that's going to be amazing. Here's a quick revisit of this Sundrops that I was working on and showed you how to trim back. Remember that I trimmed all the way around and evened the plant up and made it a nice round mounding plant. And what we were looking for is new growth here in the center, because again, a mounding plant is going to need to be round, not half a plant. So right now you can see we've got the center of the plant right here, But all of this area, well, not so much anymore from our pruning, but still we have a whole area here that has not a lot of branches and plant growing there. So you can see though here in the center, we've got it growing upward from the center. We've got nice new green growth here. We've got lots of places where it's growing upward from the center of the plant, and that's all very good. So what you do is, when this is pruned back the next time, I will cut it back harder all around this side that is growing so far out from the center of the plant, and that will of course force it to put its energy into this side where we're still lacking foliage and that nice round shape that we want overall for this Sundrops. Okay, here is the Sundrops that needs to grow out on this side that I'm showing you right here. And we've got a good amount of growth here now. We've got a good amount of growth coming up from the center. We've got more growth coming out from over here, which is great. We just need to encourage that to continue to do the same thing. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to cut it back again all along this whole almost 3/4 of this plant, and cut it back in a little bit more. And we're also going to reduce it down on the top by just a little bit so that we get the growth over there where it needs to be. So I'm going to start over here on this side and just cut away. And then once that little bit is done, I can just kind of come in with my pruners a little bit at a time and just shape that up. And then here on the top, I think I'll wait and do the top after I get this done. And I want to show you, because I had cut this back, we now have some nice new growth coming out from underneath here. And when I prune this back, this is going to obviously get some more light, which is going to be great. So if I find that in some other places, yeah, here we go. There's another place right there where we've got growth coming out from underneath. So I already know that this plant is regenerating from the prior pruning session, and those are the kinds of things that you're going to want to watch for when you do your pruning, because that tells you without question that your plant has recovered from the pruning that you did to it, and you're safe to prune again. So we'll continue. I think actually what I'm going to do is I am going to cut this down a decent amount off this front edge right here once I get this trimmed back on the sides. And I'll explain why in just a minute. But this area down here, I'm going to cut that off by about half. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want that to continue to bush out from inside here, not just continue to get longer. So we'll continue on around here. we are going to take the growth here on the side where we do want it to grow. It's on this side of the plant where currently we don't have a whole lot of growth. But if I just continue to let this grow upward, I'm not going to continue to get growth out here in the side. So I want to show you down in here. See right there at the tip of my finger. Let me see if I can get in closer where this stays in focus. Yeah, right there at the tip of my finger, you can see tiny little growth, and that's probably about a 1/16 of an inch across. That's the kind of thing that I want to see coming out on this plant. So what I'm going to do to force that is I'm going to cut all of this back by about half. Gathered that all up, and that's the overall height of it. I'm going to cut half of it off. And so now what I'm going to get even more energy coming out in this area where I want this plant to grow out full on this side of the plant.
And while you're watching the pruning of the side of this plant, I want to mention that earlier I said I would have pictures of this plant from this same yard. You'll find those a little bit later in the video, and I just wanted to call your attention to that.
This plant gets a whole lot of sun from this side. So what I'm going to do is along this top edge where it's a little bit thicker, right along this top edge of the plant, I'm going to cut that back just a little bit more. I'm not reducing the overall diameter of the plant, but I am sort of cutting it back at the edge. And I am going to cut this down just a little bit on the top because, again, I want the sun to get in here to the center of this plant. I want it to be able to put on energy over here on this side that is currently pretty defoliated still. And in order to do that, I have to reduce it in these places where, until I started working on it, it was just getting longer instead of filling out. Continuing at pruning along here. So still I'm just continuing to work on this top edge where the plant is getting so shaded that the sun really can't get in there to these areas that need to grow out. Okay, well, let me show you what I've got as a result of doing that. Now you can see that because I've cut away some of this stuff that was laying here on the top, now I've got this nice little new growth here that is now exposed to the sun, and that is going to go straight up. Same thing over here. I've got new growth along these branches. That's going to put that growth out here where I need this plant to fill out. And even though I said we were cutting away some blooms, there still remains buds here and here, and there will be more buds that'll show up on this plant because now it's going to be getting even more sun and more light inside the plant. It's going to be able to photosynthesize energy, and it's going to continue to put on this nice foliage and fill out and continue to put on the blooms. So the other thing I want you to notice is when we first came up to it, you couldn't really see through the foliage, but now you can see through to the ground, and that's what we wanted. Because remember here where I showed you on the front of the plant that we've got this new growth coming out down low? That is because I had cut back on this side the first time I did the pruning. Each time we open up the plant to get it more light inside, we're going to get even more of that new growth and get a nice round plant that's just covered with foliage and with blooms, which is what we want. Here's our Sundrops that I was working with. You can see we've got lots more growth over here on this side where we needed to have it. We've got good small growth coming out even further down on these branches that were formerly bare. And you can see we have more buds that are getting ready to come into bloom. There's some there. You can see them inside the plant here. And you can also see the tiny little new growth all along on the edges here. So this is doing nicely. Again, we've gotten into fall here a lot sooner than we might expect in North Texas. And it's not quite as warm as it often is this time of the year. So this is growing a little more slowly than it might if we were getting nice hot weather still, but it's coming along beautifully, and this is going to end up rounding out just like our plan says. So the next time it's cut back, it just needs to be cut back more around this side, cut down a little bit more on the top, and it's going to continue to fill out over here where we need it to do that. As we finish the video from that session and start the footage from the next one, I just want to be sure you're aware that it is only 1 week that has gone by. It's amazing what you're going to see. Tons more growth over here on this side. You can see right here, look at all this nice new little growth coming out. We've got growth coming over there. So this is doing great. We've got blooms on it, which is fantastic. That's what we want. So I'm going to give this another quick prune while I'm here today. You can see it's nice and dense and green all around this side. Doing really well. So I'm going to just start as I have before, just cutting away a little bit on this side. And there was a lot of vehicle noise, so I'm just going to voice over that what I said here was that I like to cut around the plant first to shape it along the side at the bottom, and then cut along the edge and the top. By doing that, I'm able to better see what actually needs to be removed at the top after I've cut the sides and near the bottom of the plant. And now that I've got that done, I'm going to come up here on what I call the edge. Again, this area that's between the top and the side. Cut some down on the top as well, because we want this to continue to be forced to grow out over there where it currently doesn't have very much foliage. So to get it to do that, we've got to keep cutting away on this side and on the top. Now this time I am going to go ahead and leave these blooms that are in here and just cut back here along this edge to just open up the plant some more, get more light in there. this back by a little bit. Put that down. And then I'll just continue to work my way around the side here of the plant. And see, now I'm into this nice new growth that we have coming on over here, where we actually need this to be putting on foliage, which is great. So see, we've rounded that off. Gonna cut that down by a little bit, and I'm just gonna leave this part continue to grow over here, just like it's doing. Now, I think I'll show this to you from the side. I've got a part right here in this new growth area where you can see we've got nice new growth down in here deep. I showed you that last time we were here. We've got a nice bloom coming on it. So I'm going to go in here this time and I'm going to cut this down by quite a bit. Because again, when we do that, we're going to be forcing it to put energy into this growth that's down here, which is what we want. Do the same thing there, cut away some of that, and then I'm going to come along the top here and just even this out across the top as well. And see, that's, now you can see we've got good growth coming out here on this old wood that before didn't have anything on it. You can see it's there and it's here. So we're gonna leave that and just let that grow.
The footage you're looking at right now is slowed down footage of something you'll see in just a moment, which is on the side of the plant where we need it to grow out, and this shows you how to cut it to encourage it to do that.
So even this little bit right here, I'm gonna cut down by a little bit, just to force that to put its energy into growing down low. So let me show you now what that looks like. We've reduced it back in size, just a little bit more. But see, we're starting to close this gap over here on this side, and it's starting to fill in. So the next time this is trimmed, the homeowner can wait a few weeks, depending on the weather. If we still get good sun like we are right now, she can come along and cut this back in again by another inch or two, and cut this down on the top by about an inch. She'll more than likely be able to cut this area down again by a little bit. But see, down under here, we've got a nice branch growing out where there formerly was absolutely nothing. And she's gonna have more blooms on it. We've got a bud over here getting ready to come open. So this is just really looking good. And this will be our last visit to this plant. I hope you've enjoyed taking a look at this beautiful perennial Sundrops. And now it's time for the bonus that I promised you. I'm going to finish off this video with beautiful flowers from my morning walk in the garden. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
Last of all, as promised, here are the sun drops.